Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football podcast. I'm Joe Devine, and I'm delighted today to be joined by a number of different people. One of them is JJ Bull.
Hello.
Hello there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, tanned?
No, not really.
Not really.
It was lightning and thunder and rain.
And that was just the football.
Correct.
Yeah. John McKenzie.
Hello.
There he is, popping up like a creature that lives underground, burrowed within his own misery. And here he is, all the way from the Athletic Football Tactics podcast and the newsroom. A round of applause. It's Liam Farm.
Thanks, Joe.
All right?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Plus Steve Hankey's here.
Hello.
There he is, yeah. So much on the docket today to get through and discuss. I'm not looking at the docket. Hold on. Oh, here it is. The docket. No, we've got it now, Liam. Not to worry. Our Man City back. And for how long? We discussed that at the beginning there. The race between me and JJ that took place over the summer that one person forgot, and then the story that was resolved during the body of the podcast here. Can't wait for you to hear about that bit. I forgot it had happened. Pep Guardiola's view on modern football was discussed. Is it happening now? I think yes. And what will it be in the future? We scrabbled around looking for some conclusions. Maybe we found some. I don't know. You'll find out as we get there. Fans of British politics will enjoy today's episode. I mean, I don't know if they will. But we do some voices.
Tom is doing some heavy lifting.
We do one voice that sounds a little bit like Keir Starmer or just a nasal man talking to the speaker. So look forward to that bit later. JJ was in Lisbon to watch Benfica Barcelona, one of the classics of the season so far.
Why were Benfica playing in Lisbon and not Benfica?
Huh?
What does Benfica mean?
I don't know. Why have you?
Do you know what Benfica means?
No.
Does anyone know what Benfica means?
Pretty sure it's a suburb of Lisbon.
Right.
Lisbon.
Yeah.
But it would still be accurate to say that they were playing in
Lisbon.
Lisbon.
Yes, it was. I don't know why John did that.
Someone called Jack Lang.
A strange interruption. A strange interruption from a strange man. Now, what else was there in this here? We spun the wheel. And we played points about. That's about it, isn't it?
We should add some more to the wheel, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I quite like the idea that the wheel only has old topics on it.
The one batch of topics that I gave you that 1 week.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that too.
But it
makes
doesn't
it
have
funnier.
Fulham on them.
But the nature of randomness and infinity means that if I were to add more to it each time, then you never know what's going to come up.
You would still
but
have the old topics.
You know what the sort of options are now.
I do, yeah. I mean,
which ruins the fun a little bit for you, which then would.
Well, there's so many I can't recall. But the fun thing is that every time one comes up, it disappears from the wheel. So the wheel grows smaller.
Did you just leave that on your computer the whole time?
Yeah, I'm worried if I close the tab that I'll lose it all. So I've just got that tab open. Hopefully, my computer doesn't have to update or anything.
Yeah, I can't imagine that happening.
Yeah. Do you want to see me? See you? Yeah, if you do, then you should come to the Tifo live show. That's right, a Tifo live show in human reality is happening on the 24th of May. That's a Saturday, the day before the final round of Premier League fixtures. And I can tell you, you can get tickets to this event, which will be at the new Soho Theatre in Walthamstow. Very large, rotund affair.
It's a lovely looking building.
Very nice. We'll be amongst the first to grace the boards, JJ. It'll be a relatively a new venue. You can buy tickets for this when they are released to the general public on the 30th of January. And please do it, because I've told people that I will be performing there, and it's got, if the people don't come, it's going to be embarrassing for me in my personal life.
They did sell quite quickly last time.
They did, so I would encourage people, if they want to come, to try to get a ticket. And unlike last time, I think we've been sort of slotted in at late notice to this schedule due to some other changes. So we won't be able to just add another show the next day like we did last time. It probably will be just at one. We might do another one in the second half of the year, but at least for this season, this will definitely be the only one we're doing. So if you want to come, you can get a ticket, and you can do that by, I don't know, looking on the internet and seeing about where to find one, or maybe there'll be a link next to. I don't know if there will be or not. That's the kind of admin, the level of admin that I have no desire to be.
I think the only people that should come to the show are people who would be able to deduce this. In the same way that like MI5 would do secret adverts in the newspapers, you got to be able to figure out how to find the ticket.
No, JJ, come on, everyone's welcome, but you will have to have quick fingers because they're gonna go quickly. I would expect. That's the 24th of May. Tifo live. My face. I don't know. Where else to begin, of course, than with Manchester City 3-1 Chelsea, John McKenzie. Well, I suppose the only question to ask is, are they back?
Yeah, well, they've won a game, right, against a good team.
Right.
So, yeah, they're back.
Worth saying they lost a game against a good team in the same week.
They weren't back.
Oh, they weren't back then?
That week, part of the week. But this week, this part of the week now.
Yeah?
Back.
Back? Oh, that's good. That's exciting, isn't it? Liam, do you think they're back?
Temporarily, quite possibly, until they play again on Wednesday, and then they might be not back again.
Did you watch the game?
I did. I was quite concerned the first sort of 15 minutes. Not just the first goal that City conceded, but sort of the minutes following that. They've had a real problem this season of conceding one and then conceding again fairly quickly and just having no real composure. Guardiola spoke about it after the game against PSG and after Brentford away recently as well, games where they've conceded in quick succession. Just like, we just need to keep the ball. We just need to hold possession basically and take the sting out. This is like particularly in away games where crowds can then get up and you're playing against a bit of an atmosphere, I suppose, different at home. But there was a moment at 1-0 where Cole Palmer went through and tried to square it, and it very nearly went sort of 2-0 early on. And I thought, like, it's quite worrying watching that for City this season. There's sort of been 7 or 8 games now where that's happened, and you go, that I don't know the easy fix for it, but it's a real issue.
And what were you concerned about?
Well, them conceding again.
Oh, City. I thought maybe it was like carbon monoxide poisoning or something. I thought
aren't we all? But
you were concerned and you were watching, but no, you were concerned about them. That
Sure.
makes sense. I mean, what did you think, John?
Yeah, it's an interesting game because I think what you have to do when you're watching City at the moment is distinguish between sort of the tactical reality and then the sort of performance reality.
I'm doing that when I watch them.
Yeah, well, and what I mean by that is that, as Liam's mentioned, there's clearly an aspect of what they're doing which is psychologically involved, right? So they concede a goal in fairly calamitous situations, and then you can see the sort of here we go again mentality coming out a little bit. Whereas I thought that actually on the tactical level, that there was a lot of things that made it very clear that I think that City were the better team in terms of their game plan in this one. So it's a kind of really interesting, and obviously those two things, they do overlap. As Liam mentioned, Guardiola is saying the big issue for us at the moment is not directly conceding from these transition moments, although that is a symptom of the problem. The problem itself is we can't keep the ball well enough to be able to do what we're doing. He develops the tactics for each game on the basis of an assumption that his team are going to keep the ball. And I think that's what's been so interesting this season has been that he's generally gone through his time at Manchester City assuming that the tactics will work because his players will keep the ball and they'll do the things that they're supposed to do. And it's it's this whole gamble between, okay, we're gonna have high possession, so that means we're gonna have the ball a lot. We're gonna generate lower quality chances because we squeeze the opposition into their own box and slowly break them down. We almost create a low block for ourselves to break down. That's going to reduce the quality of the chances, but we're going to get way more of them. And because we've got good players, generally speaking, you'd expect them to finish. But the other side of the coin is, well, because we've got so much possession, we're not going to give away many chances, right? So I think that he's in this sort of situation where he's developing these game plans, assuming that his team can do the things that they did in previous seasons, and they can't. So in this game, it started off and it felt like the same old story, right? It felt like, oh, here we go, they've just conceded silly goals, and they're going to find it hard to pull this one back. But I thought
15 minutes particularly, I thought
right.
Chelsea looked like the better team.
Yeah, but then I think it slowly turned around.
Yeah.
And the tactical reality was that I think Guardiola did something slightly different. He went with the sort of high fullback variant of tactics that we saw a lot last season, and it caused a lot of problems for Chelsea because they were faced with this question of how do we cover these fullbacks, because what you want to do when you're playing against the team.
So I'm so sorry. This chair is completely screwed.
Don't talk to me about chairs.
I need a new chair, Steve.
All right now.
Mush. Is that the correct terminology? No, I'll get one. Oh, Oh,
You just wanted a nicer chair, didn't you?
that's a
What's
lordly
happened
chair. Let me just. Oh. Yeah. What were you saying?
Fullbacks. I was
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about fullbacks. How do you mark the fullbacks? Because when you're playing against a team that have Erling Haaland, they you want to double mark him, right? Because you don't want to let him be dangerous.
I
which
think
is what he
triple.
does. Triple.
Triple mark him.
Joe,
Mm.
quadruple.
Quadruple mark him. Yeah.
But you see, if you do
Have
that,
you considered putting the entire team on him?
yeah, I mean that's true. But then you do create problems for yourself.
So
elsewhere.
you went to the end too quickly.
No.
We could have done that longer.
I think the optimal number is 7.
Yeah.
But essentially, what they did at the beginning was they wanted to just have their back four quite narrow to double up on Haaland, and then Foden and Marmoush were playing very narrow as well. So they were basically using their back four quite narrow to cover the City forwards. But that then meant that there was, how do you cover the space in the wide channels? And in the first half, Josko Gvardiol, the fullback, just kept getting into loads of space. And it was causing them problems. So it's really quite nice. In the game itself, you can see after there's one moment where Gvardiol goes through, plays the ball across, Marmoush is so close to just sort of tapping it in. And immediately Maresca calls Enzo Fernandez over to him, has a quick chat with him, and Fernandez goes over to Madueke and says, basically, you've got to start man-marking Gvardiol. And so what ends up happening then is that Chelsea end up with a sort of de facto back five, because Cucurella on the other side is covering Nunes, the other fullback. And the issue then is you're now 1v1 against Haaland. And City just love that. If they get into that situation, what they'll do is if you're relatively man to man, they can just pull space around Haaland, isolate him, and then because they've got Ederson, they can just target him with long balls.
Well, it led to a goal, didn't it?
Two goals.
Two
Both
goals.
of the other goals came from long balls into forward
Right.
areas, and then the space was exploited.
Well, we're going to come back and talk about this because Guardiola also made some comments midweek about modern football matters. We're going to talk about those. But before we do, you mentioned Marmoush there. That's Omar Marmoush, who's one of their new signings that they have there at the Manchester City Football Club. JJ Bull, you like him, don't you? What do you make of him?
Yeah, I think he's good. He scored a penalty against Aberdeen in the Europa. One of them.
The Europa Con.
One of them.
Yeah.
There's two. The two that could be the same.
One of either the conference or the league.
So I saw him play against Aberdeen, so I can accurately tell you how good he is.
Yeah,
'Cause that's a good way to work out how good someone is.
That's the main way you know.
Yeah, so of a team that isn't very good playing against them, and I can confirm he is good.
Right.
So that's useful. As we saw, so I did a little video on him last week, and I thought what would happen is exactly what Guardiola did. You play him you play him left, but really he's through the middle, and you can do a lot of not exactly what Alvarez was doing, but you can get him into those central areas where you can then drop deep to link, but also run in behind. He's really good technically. Have you seen him hit a free kick?
No.
He's very good at those.
No, I guess I did see him hit a free kick in this game.
Oh, so you have?
But it wasn't very good.
Well, then you lied.
So a 100% record of nah.
Well, he could get better.
He could get better.
He could come back.
That's true.
He could be back.
Yeah.
He might score another free kick.
I was just thinking about your way of working out how good a player is, though, and I'm curious to ask you, if there were 11 of me and I played against Aberdeen versus 11 of me playing against Manchester City, what's the difference between the score lines of those games? I know I'm nil every time, but what's the,
I feel like Aberdeen would have more compassion and would
take pity on,
make up for your for what you lack physically, or have physically.
Oh, okay.
They would cater for that, and they wouldn't want to embarrass you too much. They wouldn't have the cutting killer edge that I think Man City players would. They would want to crush your bones.
Yeah.
Whereas Aberdeen, at the moment in current form, it's a strong chance it's 0-0 at half time.
Right.
Joe reads the game surprisingly well.
Oh, thanks, John.
I mean, we've started playing FC 25.
It's the same as football. I don't know if you know.
It's obviously not. But you play as a pivot.
It's worth saying we play the
midfielder.
club's version, which is one when you control one player rather than a team.
And you play as the defensive pivot, and you read the game really well.
It's just a shame that I've been burdened with all of this excess weight on my human body, because as we can see, if I were the 6'4" white-haired Santa that I play as in FC, I'd be an incredible. I've always said to my wife, I'm a sports person, really, pretending not to be a sports person. Yeah, and I've lived a whole life as someone who really isn't. I mean, as far as you can imagine from a sports person, I'm worried if I were to run that I might hurt my back.
And yet, you did not long ago challenge me to a race, which we've not done Yeah.
Oh, we did do that, and
Monster
I
race.
won.
We didn't do the race.
Yeah, I remember that. That was quite
We did do the race, and I won.
yeah
Do you really not remember this?
resounding victory as I remember it.
JJ's slipping from reality.
What is
here.
this?
It happened. Do you not remember?
What are you talking about?
It's about 6 months ago, was it?
6 months
You were
ago.
there, John.
When was
Yeah, I
that?
there.
What was the race?
Well, JJ and I had a foot race because for years he was challenging me to one, and I was saying, "Don't embarrass yourself, man. Come on. I've got long legs. Look how tall I am. I could walk twice as far as his longest pace." And then in the summer, we did a race, and I won it. Albeit it was over a slightly shorter.
I don't know if I saw you in the summer.
We raced each. It was at a Tifo social event. Anyway, it wasn't over 100 meters. It was probably more
What,
like over
inside
over,
the pub?
No. It was more like over 50. But I was so far ahead of you. You had 2 drinks.
I like that you think that this happened, and we'll.
John, can you confirm that it happened?
Continue
please?
I have
go
a
with the bit.
recollection of it happening.
John
yeah.
has a recollection of it happening. That's 2 out of 3. Liam wasn't there, obviously.
Oh,
he
I
couldn't
see.
say. Steve wasn't there
Wasn't
either.
invited.
So
If you
that's
haven't
what
heard of the
happened
term gaslighting before, I'm looking at the wrong camera.
Yeah.
If you Google that,
then. Mhm.
a picture of this comes up.
That's right. What JJ's doing to me now is gaslighting. No, it didn't happen.
Liam is
Steve's telling me to speed
an
up.
expert on running.
Is he?
Yeah.
I
Oh.
wouldn't say an expert. There's
I
actually
would.
experts in the world.
If
No,
I do,
I mean, yeah,
if I were
but
to race
relatively.
JJ, could you teach me how to win?
I could try.
Wow.
but-
The level of
I
confidence.
think
in
you
the
at
way.
full speed would be a formidable sight.
Yeah.
like
yeah.
like Bowser in Mario Kart.
It's the turning circle. It's how quickly.
That's why you run
one
in straight
stops.
lines, so you don't need
You
to
know.
Straight line, though.
How long till you got to top speed?
Yeah,
though? That's the
terminal
question.
velocity.
Oh, about a year.
So eventually, it's just
Eventually,
be
yeah.
on it.
And then it takes me 2 years to stop.
Yeah.
Nice.
Particularly in the winter. Anyway, Steve's really upset with us, so I think we should move on now. Well, that's my stomach grumbling. I wonder if the microphone picked that up. It's all of the apathy I have for you, producer Steve.
Grumbling away.
Yeah, reverberating in my innards. Now, the other player who's new and had a first team start there was Kusanov. I was calling him Kushanov before, following John's
sorry.
suggestion, but
I
I think
went
that's
full
wrong.
Soviet era.
Well, Kushanov. But I think it's
Mr. Kulshanov.
according to the commentators, it's Kusanov. So we'll go with that. Kusanov. He had a start, didn't he, Liam? It was a tricky opener for him. I felt a bit sorry for him watching him, but I guess that's what happens when you get thrown into this team.
Yeah, I mean, look, City played so many different centre backs this season already. Simpson Pusi, one of the academy graduates, came in early this season and had a few moments where he struggled, and it was quite funny hearing Gary Neville on commentary, where was sort of saying like it was almost worse than anyone sort of bashing him, was sort of the collective sympathy. Everyone was like, you feel really awful that inside 5 minutes he's had a bit of a clanger, and he's probably tried to do the right thing in that moment of actually heading the ball back to his keeper, and he's put so much sort of power in how he tried to contort himself,
Yeah.
and has just not actually managed to transfer any of that to the ball, and then obviously to get booked as well. But that happens to a lot of players. There'll probably be conversations in, like, I don't know, 5-6 months time where, I don't know, he's excellent. Everyone's going, oh, do you remember his debut where he had that absolute clanger? And it's like, you know, it's. I think it's really easy to overanalyze players very early on, either being too good and starting really well, or starting poorly, starting slowly. So I've been intrigued to see how he performs sort of rest of the season, and how City just sort of set up at the back, because they just never seem to have a consistent sort of centre back pairing, and that has to contribute as well. I think not having DS a lot of the time makes them a lot worse defensively, let alone sort of their own possession stuff when Stones isn't there. But they do feel a bit like they're sort of scrambling to plug holes at the moment, and I think just the fact that they're even going into the market to buy players and spend money in January, which is something they don't historically often do under Guardiola, because normally they don't need to. They're in a commanding position at this time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess there's a couple of reasons they need to. Obviously, their Premier League performance has been really poor. Also worth saying, we know that they did lose to PSG 4-2, I believe that game was, in the Champions League midweek last week. I'm looking at the Champions League table for the first time this year.
The Champions League.
The
table.
Champions League table. The Champions League table.
No, you just have to say the Champions League.
Oh, yeah, I
Or
guess it
table.
that does
Champions
work.
League.
I'm looking at the Champions League
Yeah.
for the first time this season. Manchester City actually in 25th position out of 36, outside the teams that would even make it to the qualification stage for the
Playoffs.
the playoff stage. Liverpool all the way at the top there, Arsenal in third place too. So really underperforming on the continent as well, which isn't always the case when you see Premier League teams underperforming in the league. Sometimes they do fairly well in Europe. So it's seemingly very important for them to bring in those new players. I mean, just on Kusanov, JJ, we've heard what Liam said there. John did a great bit a couple of weeks ago on the Athletic FC podcast about his uncertainty about where the player is at right now. Do you think what we saw in that first kind of 10 minutes of this game against Chelsea that's first game nerve jitters? That's
oh yeah.
But would you expect to see him be able to settle in straight away, or do you think he's the kind of player that like maybe shouldn't be in the starting lineup immediately?
Oh no, he just looks nervous. He's a really young guy. Has gone to the biggest league in the world playing against Chelsea. So you've got Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson running at you straight away. The first thing you have to deal with in your entire career in the most watched league in the world is sort of not realising how strong Jackson is, losing the ball, and then you header it poorly back. And so you're thinking, oh my God, this is... Then you start shaking, you'd be nervous. All you'd be thinking about is like, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake.
Yeah.
I'd imagine, I don't know what the elite sportsmen do, but it's probably what
I think it's the same. I was watching him thinking like, it was the first time ever actually watching a game of football, watching someone so bad that I thought, it's not just that they're worried that they're going to make a mistake for their team and stuff. It's that this guy is the first Uzbekistan player in the Premier League. His family and for everyone he knows at home are watching, and he makes a mistake like that in the first couple of minutes. I'd be so embarrassed. In my head, I'd be like, my family are disappointed in me. My friends, the people at school that said I was never going to make it anywhere, they weren't right.
The imposter syndrome creeps in, right?
Exactly,
that's the worst one.
I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, and God, I know that one.
Yeah.
But like, so he's got that, right? Maybe they're thinking, oh, what's going on? But the problem is when you're really nervous like that, and if you're a sportsman, like the way that the elite ones or any good sports person works is it's just naturally, it just comes to them. It's just naturally, they don't have to think about it. Things just go the way they want them to. They instantly just snip a pass around the corner because they know that's where it'll go. But when you're nervous, you start like thinking like what your body's actually doing. It's like, have you ever tried to wear a blindfold and walk in a straight line?
Yes.
It's really hard.
It is hard.
I don't know why that is, but it's the same
see.
sort of thing, right? So you're just not being able to do the very basic things you'd normally do. And I think that's a little bit of what you saw, where he's like, the next thing he does, I think, is a little pass around the corner that just goes straight to Chelsea player and they run at him. The foul that gets booked for a yellow card is really funny. That's like a video game slide tackle.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. So if he does more of them, big fan.
Yeah.
I mean, to suggest that, well, I'm not saying you're suggesting that, but you did ask whether he shouldn't be in the first team altogether.
Yeah.
Very harsh.
I didn't know altogether. I just meant, in an ordinary situation when Man City had all of their players fit and available, is he slotting into the first 11? Is he that good?
He'll get like 20 games or something like that. Maybe not this season because there's not that many left, But
there probably is.
But the Guardiola's defenders, he rotates them a lot as well, so they all get the same amount of game time, really. They all end up with like 22 games each starting in the league. So I'd imagine that's what will happen. But you have to adapt to, this is so obvious, you have to adapt to the new country, everyone around you, the way they want to play, making sure that the responsibility of playing in that team when they're not that solid. Like the amount of chances that Chelsea were running at them in the first 15 minutes because of errors in the midfield, and then you have to deal with those. Those are really hard to deal with, and the best defenders in the world struggle if they're being run at that fast. But he'll get games eventually, and probably be really, really good.
In the video analysis that I did, the point that I made is that a lot of what you are expected to do as a centre back is position yourself well, and if you get that initial contact wrong or positioning in the contact wrong, then it can lead to a series of events where you're having to make increasingly difficult manoeuvres to get out of things. And that's why it's kind of confusing with Kusanov, because he obviously has the ability to fix the mistakes that he makes, but he's still making those initial mistakes because of poor positioning. We saw that in the goal against Chelsea, is that the initial issue is that he misses a header because he isn't able to read the flight of the ball well. And I think so much of the reason why centre backs in particular tend to be much older before they come through is because so much of what they actually have to do is learn how to read the game. And that was why I was saying in that video, I'd be surprised to see him starting so early on, because he's got so much to learn yet. 18 months ago he was playing in Belarus, and he's had a really vertiginous rise. I think that's, at the same time, you can see he has all of the potentials to be a great centre back. He just doesn't have enough time under his belt to really bring all of that, all of the sort of physical and athletic profile profiling that he does into the sort of best version of himself that he can be.
Yes, I think that's true, John. There was an edit there. Now, Liam, let me ask you about PSG before we move on, because PSG are obviously the team to beat Man City midweek. They're only faring slightly better in the Champions League. They are currently in 22nd place, so they will qualify for the playoffs if it all ended today. How are they doing, to your knowledge, so far this season?
Yeah, they're quite funny. They're unbeaten in the league still. Had another sort of poor home draw the weekend. They've drawn a few games at home and have sort of been very underwhelming in some of those, and a lot of the time obviously put teams away quite comfortably. They've been fun in the Champions League. They've kind of got found out quite a lot in away games. The Bayern away game in particular, they just got absolutely bossed. Arsenal kind of put them away quite convincingly as well. A lot of the time their midfield tends to struggle. They've got a load of really good technicians, but basically not a lot of the big guys that Arsenal, City, etc. tend to invest in now in midfield, and just tend to kind of get overrun, and then it's harder to play and keep the ball when this big guy's getting on top of you, and you're losing duels and sort of being pressed in that way. They're going to be sort of really interesting to watch on the final round of the Champions League fixtures. They're going to Stuttgart, who are in really good form, and it's basically a
Stuttgart also 24th.
Yeah, so it's basically must win for
position.
Because sort of if either team wins, they've got a good chance of, or they should, I think, go through and qualify.
Yes.
If they both draw, I think it might end up knocking them both out, which is also quite funny. So no, I don't know mathematically. No one take that as
Believe what he said. They have to win. It's an emergency situation, according to Liam Tharm of The Athletic.
You look at the teams below them, so like City and Dinamo Zagreb and stuff.
Shakhtar Donetsk in there as well.
Who can all like have enough points that they can sort of leapfrog a team.
Read the names. He's trying to talk and you're just going to reread it.
Just keep going.
No, Shakhtar Donetsk I think are already out because they're 3 points already been.
Are they? I see. Okay.
I shouldn't have read that name.
Liam Tharm of The Athletic.
According to Liam Tharm of The Athletic, Shakhtar Donetsk are going to win. Sorry, what were you saying?
I don't even remember now.
Is it like this on the Athletic Tactics podcast?
Nowhere near as sort of high functioning.
It's good, isn't it? That one. It's good.
I mean, Steve knows. I can't sit here and lie. Steve has produced that.
Well made historically and in the present. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So are you the producer now?
I was.
Oh, you was. Yeah. They got rid of him as well, didn't they?
Went on to do better things.
Yeah. This is the thing. They said when you get kicked from one football podcast, it's not your fault. When you get kicked from two, it's like, come on, Steve. You're lucky to be here. Shape up. Huh? Right. Let's have a quick break now, because Steve told me we were going to have a quick break now. Yes, now. Modern football, John. There's a question in my mind. Modern football, it's been planted there, little seed growing every day since Guardiola said a quote that I don't now have in front of me.
It's on the list. I can
is
read
it? Where is it?
Can
you? Where is it? Oh, here it is. I see. Today, he said, modern football is the way.
You made him sound like a politician. Today,
he said.
Can you do it in a Guardiola accent?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Possibly do that.
No, I mean that
do
would
it in a Sean Dyche accent.
No, don't do it in a Sean Dyche accent. Let me get through it. Today, he said, modern football is the way.
Mr. Speaker.
Bournemouth, Mr. Speaker.
Today, modern football
Mr. Speaker.
is the way Bournemouth, Newcastle, Brighton, and Liverpool play.
And I put it to the honourable gentleman from Crew
Chipping Snortbury
that Guardiola is correct here, John. Is that?
Yeah, I mean,
this is very niche fun we're having.
Yeah, we are having very niche fun.
Let's do that again. And
let's keep it in.
No, we'll keep
great.
it in. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Steve's nodding.
It's a quote from Guardiola that was on TNT Sport.
Mr. Speaker,
which was quite. It was really interesting because he was saying the question that was asked to him was like, you must be happy with the way that you've dealt with this. Your team have dealt with this sort of downturn, and he was basically saying no.
Why would he be happy?
He was like, we've not really dealt with it, but it was interesting because immediately he was saying the reason why we haven't dealt with it is because modern football is now, all of the teams in the Premier League are now moving towards this more direct approach, which is I think on the one hand is quite different to the way that City have played and still do play.
Yeah.
But also sort of really exacerbates the issues that City have had in their squad's physicality not being up to it. So he was saying, modern teams are now playing much more direct, they're playing much more physical, and we've just not been able to compete on that level.
Because in previous years, direct meant West Ham, lobbing it up all the way to Andy Carroll and him knocking it down to a small man to score. That's not exactly what you mean by direct, right?
Yeah, and he used the phrase positional to talk about why it was different from what maybe his teams do. And you know, on the one hand, it is worth saying that football is a complicated thing. Like Pep Guardiola teams don't try and do the same thing all the time when they're on the football field.
Yeah.
We've just talked about how they were really good at isolating Haaland and going direct from the goalkeeper, which is what you think of by when people say direct, right?
That's true.
I think what he's talking about here is that, generally speaking, what Pep Guardiola teams try and do is use the position of their players to find space in between lines, and then consistently and sustainably find those free players, move the ball down the field and maintain possession and control while they're doing it. And what he's saying now is that actually teams are not quite so worried about maybe progressing the ball in that way. There was a period, you know, across the last 10 years, I guess, where most of the big teams were trying to do what Pep Guardiola was trying to do. And now he's making the point that actually these teams, okay, we're not talking about teams at the same sort of level of what we would when we say elite football, but the teams who are now challenging the elites are trying to progress the ball in a different way.
Well, what's the difference, though?
So there's a really interesting interview with Andoni Iraola, who's the Bournemouth manager. He's one of these modern teams that Guardiola has mentioned.
This was by Miguel Delaney.
Yeah,
right?
Miguel Delaney in the Independent. Really good interview, well worth checking out. There's some interesting quotes in it. So Iraola says, "I sometimes value much more." This is in contrast to positional approaches. I sometimes value much more a player carrying the ball and forcing things to happen. I think when you play too positional, 1 or 2 touches to find a free man, you sometimes lose the initiative from the players to just take their man on and attack the spaces. So what he's talking about here now is just a much more direct way of playing. I think in positional play, the general idea is that you create the space which a free player then finds, and you pass the ball to the player, you find the free player in between the lines. Whereas what he's saying here is if the space is there and you're on the ball, just take it yourself. And what you will end up doing then is pulling around opposition structures and making it much harder for themselves. So another quote further. So Iraola is still saying, you know, we're still playing positional football. We're still going to try and move the ball down the field in that way, but we're going to take the advantages when they appear. Yeah. But also he talks about how they use that as a way of causing teams problems without the ball as well, because he's saying that a lot of the time these positional approaches rely on patterns of play, which the players have to sort of set themselves into good structures to then be able to play. And he says we try not to give the teams the time to play their patterns because everyone is prepared to exploit the spaces they've been training. So he's basically saying, you know,
stop the automatisms.
Yeah, basically, or stop the reliance on having to slow the game down in order to, or this assumption that you need to slow the game down to progress the ball sustainably. There are other ways of doing it as well. It remains to be seen, I think, where this goes, because the teams that are mentioned in that list, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Brighton and Liverpool, I mean, with the exception of Liverpool, who I actually think are probably way more positional than Guardiola is maybe giving them. It's a different kind of thing, right? Because with Liverpool, what they are trying to do is they are trying to slow games down and then pick their moments when they go direct. But I think with the exception of Liverpool, these other teams, you look at the way that they play and you wonder, like, are they ever going to challenge at the highest level playing in this play style? Like, isn't the point with Bournemouth that they've managed to raise themselves above where you would expect them to be playing a different type of football? But are we expecting Bournemouth to be in a title challenge next season? No, probably not. Are we expecting Newcastle or Brighton to be in a title challenge next season? Probably not. Sorry, Liam. Sorry.
Going to go cry.
But if they had all good players like Manchester City have, then couldn't they be in a title race playing that style of football?
That's the argument that's given. But I guess the problem with that, as I see, there's a number of problems. One of them is that control is generally quite good if you're a team who's trying to, who's in winning situations a lot, but also trying to maintain consistent wins across the course of a season. That's why Guardiola has always been traditionally the guy to beat, because regardless of the flaws in his system that we're talking about here, they still win more games than they don't, and that is a really good way of winning leagues. Yeah. But I think the other issue is that what you're doing now is you're relying on intensity. So yeah, if you dribble with the ball, you need to have really good ball carriers. If you then lose the ball, you're probably going to be in a defensive structure that isn't really great for defending a transition. So then you need to have really energetic players to get back and be able to chase the ball back. On the one hand, you're going to buy very specific type of players to achieve that. Those players often tend to be less technically secure than other players. So yeah, the concept of better players generally means like more technical players, and often that can come with a level of intensity as well, right? Like Phil Foden is a better player than I don't know, Justin Cliver.
You've done air quotes there, just to imply that you were sort of saying better with a meaning.
Yeah, better in the sense of what people tend to mean by better is more technically secure players. So Phil Foden is a better player than Justin Cliver.
Yeah.
I think Phil Foden probably would. I don't know. He'd probably be quite good in the Bournemouth setup as well. But whether or not Justin Cliver would be better in a Man City setup is another question entirely. And the problem becomes if you then fill your team with technical players, suddenly the intensity becomes hard to do. That's exactly why Pep Guardiola started with this quote, right? Because he's saying modern football is very different from what it used to be. My squad is full of these technically superior players, but they can't compete at the physical level enough to actually mount a title challenge this season. So I think there's definitely questions about whether or not you give Andoni Iraola better players, and then the play style drops off in its effectiveness a little bit.
Liam, let me ask you then. The way that John describes it makes me feel as though it's a bit like Man City were. Excuse me. It's a bit like Man City were a tech startup, that developed a new thing and did it really, really well, and had this kind of period of a few years where they were the only ones doing it, and there were relatively few other companies
You're going to ask
doing
him
it.
what supermarket?
No, not a supermarket thing. It's a tech company. You ever heard of tech?
I've heard of tech companies.
Yeah. Silicon Valley, John.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why is it silicon like that?
Silicon Valley. Now, that sounds delicious. A silicone. Very. Anyway, what I'm saying is they did this thing better than everybody else because they were the only people doing it. This is a terrible analogy, but they had that gap of a few years there before everybody else worked out what they were doing well, and then started to also do it or work out the way to negate them doing it. This is where the analogy falls down.
It's a great analogy. This is good.
You think
It works
keep going
well.
with it.
Is it actually an analogy?
And now the question now is: has the marketplace moved on? AKA, did the tech company that were the original tech company, did the tech company need to develop a new thing to try to move on the whole world of tech? Or have they just lost the kind of their marginal gains that they had for that brief period when they had the opportunity to make the thing that no one else was making? What do you think? And what's your favourite laptop?
I feel like you didn't need to use the analogy. You could have just said a city outdated.
Wasn't it more? Didn't we have more fun along
We
the
did
way?
have more
We had
fun
fun
along
along the way.
Which supermarket are Bournemouth, Liam?
No.
I don't know which supermarket of Bournemouth. I've never really thought about
This
it.
is what it's like.
He's
This is
been-
what it's like.
Yeah, except the thing is, what I derail with is better than the thing that's been spoken of before. Now, answer my question, Liam, or you're out.
I don't even remember the question.
No, it wasn't really a
City
question.
need to do something new.
The question is, can they continue
Yes.
with the Guardiola approach and just is the problem right now that their players aren't performing it particularly well, or because of the change to other teams in the league and their environment, does Guardiola need to try to find the new meta of football?
Not necessarily find a new meta, but it might be doing something which they've done previously and going back to an older variation. There's often that theory that it always needs to be new and different, right, and bigger. And John and I have had quite a few discussions about this, and John often makes a really good point in that still no one else plays like City. If you look at sort of any sort of statistic of the possession that they have or how long their sequences are in attack, how high their defensive line is, it's quite interesting this season and only really recent in the past few games. You were speaking about the directness into Haaland earlier on being a good thing. It was against Chelsea. It was also their undoing against PSG. It was massively their undoing against Brentford, where they were trying to hit those long balls. They weren't winning the duels, and passes were just going in behind them, and they had no sort of composure.
It's also worth saying that they played in that way in the 22-23 season when they were like running towards the title at the end when they had that really successful run. They've also done similar things the season before when they were using Gundogan as basically a second striker and getting the ball forward to direct to him as well. So it's people will take something like this and be like, oh, Pep's changed his style of play. I don't think he has. He's always going to look for those. He's always going to look for those advantages, and if they're there, he'll take them. It's not always going to be like patient build up. If you get Haaland isolated 1v1, you try and find him.
It's become a really intense pressing league now. Almost every team is sort of pushing into man for man, defensive play. And I think that's hard often to play short build up play against. You can factor in, of course, the fact that teams now doing more research than ever. I also think it maybe helps that City have been at this level and with Guardiola, with a lot of the same players for so long now, that players and opposition coaches are just getting more and more chances to play against him and probably refine their sort of game plan. I always think that watching Brentford are a great example, that I know Guardiola hates playing against Thomas Frank, and he's always really complimentary of Thomas Frank, but he hates playing against him. Sort of any press conference before or after, he's like, just didn't have a good time today. Just looks like he's really fed up with this team that are really stubborn at mixing that approach now. It's not just we're going to sit off and defend in our own half and play a low block. It's not going to be quite pure as sort of maybe even Everton now, a team that people under Dyche, with people saying, oh, they're just a low block. They weren't. They were one of the most aggressive pressing teams in the league. That teams now are saying we're actually going to defend across the whole pitch in different ways. And I think you can probably look at maybe some poor squad building for City, an ageing squad. They've probably had a bit of regression as well from being at such a high level. That's hard to sustain forever. And I think the one real shame is that they've sold so many academy graduates. And fair enough, there are probably quite a few of them that were at a good, maybe Premier League level, not quite a top 4 Premier League level. We're seeing the same with Arsenal now. It's hard to be an academy graduate unless you're outstanding and go into a title-chasing team. But I do wonder, in terms of now the recruitment they're doing, how many of those gaps might have been filled by some of the graduates that they had that they then sold, looking at Liam Delap or James Trafford, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, etc. The depth of the list is quite ridiculous, and that's fine. You could make the money from selling them and then go and buy someone else from elsewhere. You're allowed to do that. That's not a problem. But you think someone that you had in-house that you refined in your style for 5, 6, 7, 8 years might have been a more seamless fit, especially in a time now where it's difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, JJ, what do you think? When you think about Guardiola and you look forward into the future, what do you see?
He'll find a new way to play, which is similar to an old way to play, like a new version of it. That's what he's always done, right? So it sounds all new, but it's all actually stuff he talked about with his mentor, Johan Cruyff, all the time. Yeah. That's probably what you'll see. I think Liam's point about the young players leaving as well is relevant, but I think that there's also the human side of it, in that like these players need to play. And if they're not going to get the game, like a lot of them will be wanting out, or they'll just, the people in the club are nice and they'll be like, you need to, if you want to have a career, it's probably best if you go now. So that's probably a thing too.
What's that song? People in the club.
People in the club. You can come back eventually. Yeah. Don't worry if you don't go now, because you can come back
eventually
in the sea
with a buyback clause.
With a buyback clause.
With a buyback clause. Yeah, I mean, and that does go on that song, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But it's time now to play the Midway Game. Yeah, we'll be back in a moment after we've played the Midway Game. Oh, nobody won the Midway Game again this time.
Who was close this time?
You were.
That's right.
With the buyback clause. You were pretty close. Liam was a million miles away. Don't believe the hype. This guy.
I don't believe the hype.
It was a bad...
Who's hyping?
What do they call it? The Athletic Football Tactics Podcast? More like the Athletic Football Tactics Podcast. It is pretty good, actually. You should probably listen to that one as well there. Anyway.
Lost his confidence there.
What did we talk about? Bournemouth beat Forest 5-0. Anyway, the most annoying thing about that, Steve, of course, is that on Tifo we released a Nottingham Forest video this morning called The Surprising Rise of Nottingham Forest. And when I saw that Bournemouth score over the weekend, of course, the video was written far in advance of this game. I thought, God damn, the Cherries! Where do they play? The Vitality Stadium.
Appropriate name for their play style.
Anyway,
but
not
I don't know
about
if
that.
they would have known about that when they gave the naming rights
well,
to
it should be. It's Dean's Court now, isn't it, with Huijsen? So.
Who's Dean?
Their centre back, who's allegedly Spanish, but he's Dutch.
He's Dutch and Spanish. He's Dutch and plays for the Spanish national team.
How is one allegedly Spanish?
I
think all of the Spanish are allegedly Spanish, technically.
Well,
I've not seen his passport, so I personally can't verify.
No, okay.
This is a really high value of truth claims, Liam.
Good lord. Okay, next up now, Benfica 4.
We're just passing over Bournemouth then. Okay, that's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, we're passing. That was part of the plan. You agreed that.
No,
it's the name. The bit that your name is next to this bit that says no need to talk about it. It's fine. There's nothing to say here. I've got nothing interesting to say. I spent all of last week talking about it on different podcasts.
So Bournemouth weren't interesting enough, and now they are. But now they're too
first
interesting.
Seem to become uninteresting after a 5-0 win against a third place team.
You can't come here after going to the Athletic FC podcast and talking about Areola with a big smile on your face with a different host. and then come back here and try and give me the seconds of your Bournemouth tat. No. The Tifo listeners will not have the grace of listening about Bournemouth, but they will have the grace of listening about two other B teams, A teams beginning with Bs. Benfica 4, 5 Barcelona. Now, JJ, Bill, you had the delightful fortune to be at the game.
Well, this old thing.
You're not really hot in that.
This old thing.
It's really hot
It's
in here.
warm
Yeah.
in
Is your
here.
neck end a bit warm?
No,
No?
it's fine.
Is it a half and half scarf you've got there?
Yeah, and I think it is probably the best half and half scarf
It's-
combo of teams you could possibly
This
get.
looks quite good
Two different
quality.
shades of red. Can you describe it to the listener?
It's a scarf which is half Benfica and half Barcelona, which I bought from a trade merchant
What was the bunts?
outside the metro. €7.50, I think.
That's not bad. That's a lot less. Than
Well, I mean,
thought.
after the game, I probably could have got it for anything, but yeah, it was worth doing. I really wanted it,
Wow.
so it's
Great,
pretty cool.
man.
Trying to think of other teams that would be really good half and half scarves, and the closest me and Carl Anka came up with was Ajax and Inter Milan would be quite a good,
That would be
be a
good.
cool scarf, wouldn't
Blue
it?
and red as well, even the colours.
Yeah, well, what you want is the opposite colours. That is quite good, which is why like a team like Villarreal versus, but that to be a medium team they play against, it would be level, you know.
I think Norwich
cool.
City versus Leicester City would be good because you get the blue one half and
No,
then the yellow and green.
England
the other.
ones just don't work. It's like you
England
couldn't have like
ones.
Aberdeen versus Dundee.
But what
It's
if you
quite
were,
funny?
what
but
if
not
you were
really.
wearing it in Italy? Where in Italy they
Yeah,
might
it doesn't
look at
work
Norwich
the same
City.
way here, does it? It's the
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something less fun about
The
it being
people of
England,
the people
though.
of Bergamo might think, oh, Norwich so.
People of Berg.
Yeah, they might go like Norwich is so far flung. You know. It's,
Do you
I
think?
don't know.
Do you think Norwich sounds nicer if you're like not English speaking? Because it doesn't sound very nice, does it?
Well, I think
saying
they.
Ipswich.
I think they read it. Most Europeans would read it as Norwich, right? Because of how it's spelt. So and Leicester City.
it is interesting, isn't it? Like that your language context changes the way that you view other.
Yeah.
And the lack of familiarity with places like Slough. I don't know. Maybe to a foreign
Slough.
person, the name Slough sounds lovely, but to me it sounds like Slough. I mean, Slough is a bad thing anyway, right? Isn't it like a kind of bog, a slough?
I think so.
Which means that place must have originally just been a bog.
But is that just like a first language bias thing, do you think? And where
think
you
so,
grew
yeah.
up, if you just get desensitized to that and you experience so much of it that it's
But do we, like, for example, do you think that the word Slough sounds bad because of the place Slough, or do you think that...
Oh, you think
that-
actually you've
it could be
connotations
even
to
the other way
apply to
around,
it,
right?
yeah. of what
is
the
it the
place is.
sound of
Yeah.
the word?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I
Or
mean, I
what
was
the
thinking
word of,
this
yeah.
about Barcelona. Like Barcelona, it sounds like a cool place, right?
Does it?
I think so. Barcelona.
But have you always been given positive things to connect that to? So when you think of the word, people generally speak it positive. Because I imagine that if, you know, like the people that I know that would go to Barcelona are probably friends or family going on holiday, or people going there for football, for work stuff, likely to be positive experiences, and therefore subconsciously we develop like a positive...
What's an
Yeah.
example of someone going to Barcelona for a likely negative experience?
But I guess, like, for us...
To prison.
London, right? But people,
Maybe.
we live in London, right? And people always say to me, "Oh, it must be great living in London," as though like living in London is just being a tourist in London all the time, right? Whereas if someone lived in Barcelona, as you say,
I didn't say that, but you know.
but if you lived in Barcelona and your experiences were fairly rubbish most of the time,
They hate tourists there, don't they?
yeah,
That's the place where they don't want you to
to go.
Yeah, the
But
Airbnb.
I guess what I find interesting is, like, does the word Barcelona sound like onomatopoeically quite bad? Because to me,
Sure.
Norwich sounds like gross. It's just
Why?
No, not the place. The place is lovely,
The
but the word
itch.
Norwich, it's sort of like it's got a bit of porridge in it.
JJ,
hasn't it?
weigh in on this.
I don't. No, let's John dig his hole.
No, but Norwich sounds like porridge, and
But why is
porridge
porridge bad?
porridge isn't bad, but it just sounds like quite lumpy and stuff. So
Because
to
that's-
me,
you've got
the word Norwich sounds.
That's because
it's
of
a lot
what
of
his
tenuous
preconceptions
association.
about porridge.
Take away everything else behind Norwich.
Take away porridge. Of course it's lumpy, John. You got to make it fresh at home, my friend.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, now this is a very, very interesting cesspit that we've fallen into here. But let's take it back to Benfica 4, Barcelona 5.
If you lived in a place called Cesspit,
We got as far as the scarf. Now, the game, JJ. Tell us about the game, darling. Was it fun?
Yeah, it's great being in them. I had a feeling it would be this sounds stupid, but you can just sort of tell sometimes that there's going to be stuff happening in a game. I don't know if you go to it. Sometimes you know it's going to be pretty boring, but this one I had a feeling it'd be something good about it. It's just cool. Two cool teams. I really like Benfica's players that they have. I really like. It's a lot of it comes from playing Football Manager quite a lot. This, the last version, well, the most recent one. And like some of the youth players they have coming through, according to their scouts, are really, really, really good. So I like that part of it, and the way they always bring through these players that become world superstars. There's something about them being a huge part of like the culture of football, the amount of players that have come through there, and also the players they signed from South America, especially, who then become amazing and then come through. Like Di Maria didn't start in this game, you know, but he's the name on the back of all the shirts that you see around Lisbon. But the game is amazing, and like the experience. If anyone's not sure where to go for their next European football trip, go to see Benfica. It's really easy. Lisbon is like one of the best cities in the world to go to. It's great.
Plus, you get to see both football stadiums when your plane comes in.
Yeah,
it's a really nice aerial view.
It's super nice. Yeah, and then like when you go to the game, what I like about going to football is that you get the atmosphere beforehand, and so a lot of places you don't get that so much, you know. But at Benfica, you get the metro, whichever you stop at, and then there's a whole road that close off with all like vendors that have, I don't know, burgers and
half and half scarves.
Well, yeah, those are there.
Porridge,
yeah.
Half and half burgers.
Yeah, all those things, and they have like beers. So you can have some beers and like have a really good time before the game, like 2 hours before. It's magic. And then the game itself.
If you enjoy standing on the street and drinking,
you're in for it. When you go in the stadium, there's an eagle that flies round.
Yeah.
That flies, and it does it. It flies all the way around, and everyone watches, and it lands back in the middle of the pitch.
You know they've got that at Crystal Palace.
Yeah, but it's not the same. It's not as cool.
Because
as
it's
it is.
don't have it.
No,
British
the Eagle's dead. The Eagle died a couple of years ago.
Eagle died.
Yeah.
What, they didn't replace it
the
with
day
a new
the
eagle?
eagle died.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that about the eagle at Crystal Palace.
Well, they hire like eagles and hawks at various stadiums to get rid of all the seagulls and stuff.
Yeah.
So Aberdeen have that quite a lot.
And
as
the
well.
pigeons.
But they don't have the eagle fly around the stadium at Aberdeen. It just is there, getting rid of the seagulls. You know.
Did I say this last week about the pigeons all being feral?
Well, you weren't here last week.
Oh, I wasn't here last week.
Neither was
Someone told me, I read it somewhere, that pigeons in the UK are all classified as feral as opposed to wild, because it's a bit like we domesticated all the dogs, the wolves, into dogs, and then if the dogs were living on the streets again, they'd be feral dogs. They wouldn't be wild dogs because they are a domesticated breed that now run. They run wild, but they're feral, and that's all pigeons apparently.
Even like racing pigeons.
Can I make a defense of pigeons? There's a great.
Or most pigeon. You really backed off there.
No,
all pigeons, or maybe just a few pigeons.
Well, not pigeons.
Rode back
that
so
are,
fast.
that are
Mr.
owned by
Speaker.
someone.
There's a journal article I love from the late or the mid 1990s, which found that pigeons successfully learned to discriminate colour slides of paintings by Monet and Picasso.
Really?
Which I don't think I could do. So there are experimentally well-trained pigeons that have learned to.
Now, what value does that have, Liam? What could the pigeons be taught to do subsequently?
I don't know. It's not my area of expertise, I'm afraid. But
forgery, innit?
Well,
you send them into the auction house.
Well, that's true. How much is that of a money laundering thing of sort of art and how things are sold and transferred in that regard? So
how
maybe
many
that's the
pigeons are
solution.
doing it?
I don't know.
No. I mean,
all the pigeons.
all
Or
pigeons
some
are
of.
committing some sort of art fraud. You know, did you see any pigeons that were doing anything naughty in Lisbon, JJ?
There's any naughty pigeons. There were pigeons there.
Yeah.
What I did like about the game, especially, was watching some of these players that I'd heard of and not seen properly.
Yeah.
Like there's a guy who plays for Benfica called Sheldrup, who Football Manager fans will also know. He is a next top player. He's really, really good.
What's his name? Sheldrup.
Sheldrup, yeah. Andrea, I think his first name, and I think he's Norwegian. He is Norwegian, another Norwegian superstar they've got coming through. They're going to have some team coming up.
Yeah.
Florentino Luis, who's a Portuguese holding midfielder, I've recommended him on Sensible Transfers a couple of times.
That's such a regen name.
Florentino Luis.
I think that's a really regen
He's been around for a little while now.
Has he?
He's really good as well, yeah. I saw Antonio Silva, who's long been like the next Ruben Dias coming through. I didn't quite see it in him in this game, which is interesting because I really thought straight away he'd stand out. When I saw Matthias de Ligt the first time at Ajax when he was still playing there, you could see straight away he was a star. Hasn't quite gone the way I thought it would for him so far, but Silva was, I thought he'd be better than he was. Pavlidis is a striker that will get linked to everyone soon. He scored a hat-trick.
Who? Pavlidis?
Pavlidis. He's a Greek.
Evangelist.
Yeah.
Right.
He's
good.
Vlachodimos Pavlidis, I think his name is.
Right.
He's a decent striker, as a goal scorer we have there. But I also got to see Lamine Yamal and Pedri.
Yeah.
Got to see them in real life.
Your favourites.
There's no way Yamal is 17?
Yeah.
No way. Pau Cubarsí, there's no way he's like 17, 18.
Get the pigeons on it; they'll be able to work it out.
But
they look older.
They are strong. Like they are proper like
Physically mature,
adults.
yeah. They are biologically
And
not.
They
not
play with it as well. Like
teenagers.
they're mature. They're really smart in the ball. Yamal is so good. Like they had the boy. So there's a left back that Man United let go of, called Alvaro Fernandez, who's now called Alvaro Carreras.
Right.
His name's changed at some point. I didn't realise. I didn't know that's who he was when we were playing. I thought he was excellent, and I was like, I should have put him in sensible transfer for Man United. Turns out he was already there because he's really good. But he was looking after Yamal really well, and Yamal still causing trouble. And like watching these players in real life, it reminds you of why you enjoy watching football so much and going to the game. Is the whole experience, the atmosphere of it is amazing. But you see the players in real life, and there's something different to see them in real life than it is on the TV.
Yeah,
and then
you almost
like Pedri,
feel them, you know.
Exactly, you almost feel them. You feel their energy, their presence. You feel what they've got. You feel the presence they have on the pitch and what they can then bring to it. But yeah, Alejandro Balde, the Barcelona left back, is another like really, really good player. Bit Weasley for the penalty they got, but yeah.
A little bit of a weasel smell there. Okay, well, I mean, Barcelona doing fairly well. Champions League.
Yeah, they were doing okay in La Liga, but they've dropped off a bit now. Although they just smashed Valencia. Was it 7-1 on the weekend?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, they're second in the Champions League table. They are third in La Liga, about 3 points behind Atletico Madrid and 7 points behind Real Madrid. So a bit of a bridge to gap there. But did you feel positive about them watching them in person? It sounds like it.
Yeah, I think you can see. So they play a really high line, and you can see what Bruno Lage was trying to exploit in it with Benfica were playing. They're trying to hit early into the gaps either side of the centre backs, really, because they tend to form a back three. The 4 becomes a 3. Koundé normally drops in, but they were playing in a way that were trying to pull Koundé up and push Balde back in. And Balde's more of a winger, because that's what he was when he was younger. I think they turned him into a left back. So they were trying to exploit that, and that's where you get Sheldrop was really good on the left, and I think Arausness was playing on the right. I can't remember. Both really good, and both were getting forward quickly. But it's kind of counter-attack football. Benfica, I think they made a mess of it with their subs later on. In the first half, you had Lage on the sidelines was pushing them on, like stay up high, stay man-to-man, like stay really high on them because it'll stop them coming forward. Because as soon as they get the ball, they can create stuff. Like people like Pedri, like I've obviously been obsessed with for ages. He's phenomenal. He spots things you cannot see at the time when he's just playing little short passes, little through balls and stuff, opens the game up. So they have these like high-level elite players. They've got a very particular way of playing. I can see why they'll have trouble against teams that have power and aggression. It's a little bit like what Man City are having. They lack a bit of that power still and the speed you want in the middle of the pitch, and that could maybe be their problem. Like Casado's decent, but he's not what you need. He's like not having Rodri. It's that sort of thing. Yeah. So I can see them being a good team in the Champions League. One more thing that I noticed about it is that Lewandowski still looks like he's 28.
Right.
Like he's really fit.
He's one of those
fast.
older players that just keeps going and going.
He can definitely still play for ages, yeah. Because in my head, he's like 30. What is he? 5, 6?
He's 37, isn't he?
I'm like, that's old.
38.
You'll be slow by now. Is he that? Is he our age? Is he?
Let's have a look. Lewandowski.
Oh wait, we're older than that now.
He's 36 years old. 36. He was born in 1988.
Yeah.
August.
A youngster.
Olympic year.
Not many players from the 80s still playing.
No, that's true, but some.
Some like
there
the
are
pigeons.
some.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question to JJ about?
Absolutely.
Barcelona? What was their offside trap like watching in person, or sort of their defensive line? Because their offside numbers are like, or the offsides caught are ridiculously high this season. It's 115 times I've seen in the league, which is like 40 more than anyone else, which is just nuts.
Yeah, well, same way that Guardiola's kind of used Kyle Walker at City for ages. You play a really high line. If you've got someone fast like Balde, or Koundé's quite quick as well, you can just run in behind and make use of that. Araujo was decent as well. There's nothing particularly impressive about the offside line. What's interesting is how high they were playing immediately, like on the halfway line. Because then if you've got fast players in behind, you can get in behind that. But they Benfica's plan was using a diagonal ball from the centre, so you don't just ping out the wing. You have a player like Otamendi's still got it. He'd be central and he'd try and play long diagonals into the wide area, so it would curl out towards mostly the left where Sheldrop was. Yeah. So that's where you get advantage against that high line. But if you go down the other side where Balde is, then it's more problematic because he's fast and can get back to cover you. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was trying to just enjoy myself and not be too tactical nerdy watching the game.
No,
loser.
Yeah.
Well, what you were just saying reminded me of
I normally do,
of how I've tried to encourage our gaming group to play EAFC 25
Aggressive.
clubs. So not quite. What? Here's the brief genesis of it, without any interruptions from John, please. Thank you. You're going to agree with
Do I
everything
get the right
say.
to reply?
You get the right to retort. So what we did initially, because there's generally 6 of us, right? Sometimes 7 of us. What happens in clubs, which for players listeners who don't know, is the version of the game where you just control one player on the same team as your friends. And so, it's much more about being in the right place than it is about, controlling the team well. It's a really different, it feels like a very different version of the game. What happens is that, no one ever has 11 players, right? They have like 2, 3, whatever, 6 people maybe playing together. And they just take all the attacking positions. Like, all the positions that are filled are the ones closest to the opposition goal. And what happens is that when you play against another team, it's just that their players take on your AI players and you take on their AI players, and it's really boring and it's rubbish and there's never any space when you're trying to progress the ball. So instead, what I recommended was that the 6 of us all play a back 4 and the 2 6s. Originally, the idea was that we play a complete back 4 and then we have a couple of strikers. But the problem is, John and I...
Can I work out what the problem might be?
Yeah.
You then rely on the AI to score goals for you, and they're not very good at that.
That's not the problem.
That's not it.
CPU, right?
Interesting.
They're actually good. The AI is quite, in many areas, is better at scoring than we are, right? Which tells you something about us.
I think I know your level now, yeah.
The actual problem was that John and I, in the centre, we played centre backs of the back 4. We were so aggressive and so high because of our incredible tactical astuteness that the AI 6s in front of us were often behind us, like playing everyone on the side. So what happened is it gradually over an evening or two, all the human players had to move back into these defensive positions until once we tried a back 3 and wing backs. Then we settled into a position where there was a back 4, 2 6s, all humans. We put the AI wingers on attack so that they would never drop behind, and we controlled the defensive line. And for a few games, the number of offside traps that we caught that were successful and our build-up play from the back was wonderful. The risk you run is that you win a game just comfortably and you look so much better because you're playing proper football, or as soon as one of our friends does something wrong, we concede 11 goals in one game.
And we looked bad for it because we were the 2 centre-backs.
Constantly leaving us on our own.
See, the problem with playing a really aggressive back line is it's all well and good when you're pressing high with all of your players and there's no free players on the ball ever. That just doesn't happen on FIFA. And so what was ending up happening is that we would be marking like a couple of players. All they would have to do is get deeper players running through, play the ball over the top, and you just can't catch them.
Well, because our friends wouldn't track their runners.
Yeah, right,
that's why.
Well, that, and also wouldn't put the ball player under any pressure either. So it didn't really work out. So it was pretty
Well, it's been fun though. Now a quick wrap up before we move on. A slough is a wetland, usually a swamp or a shallow lake, often a backwater to a larger body of water. The water tends to be stagnant or may flow slowly on a seasonal basis. And also, the domestic pigeon was originally bred from the wild rock dove. Rock, domestic and feral pigeons are all the same species and will readily interbreed. There we go. Now, let's move on very briefly to spin the random wheel of stuff. It's spinning.
It
takes a bit of time to spin. What does it say?
It doesn't actually take a while, though. It just does that to make you think it's doing something. It's a clever user interface thing.
Oh, Everton, the only team in the league who rely on set pieces more than Arsenal.
Yeah.
But they have got a new manager now, and David
New set
Moyes
piece coach
won a
as well.
game.
New set piece coach at Everton as
Have they?
well.
Charlie Adam.
Yeah.
Oh, Charlie
Who-
Adams, the
I
set
made the
piece
argument,
coach.
why doesn't he just take the set pieces for them?
Well, either way, congratulations to Everton, who won a game over the weekend, and I think
Yeah.
are in 16th or something.
Technically, with the set piece goal, it was a penalty, but
Right.
yeah.
Oh, was it? Yes, of course. Yeah, I wonder if Charlie
the
Adams
set
coached
piece,
that
yeah,
one.
the set piece coach works on.
Well,
the
it
penalty.
wasn't phenomenal. I do think goalkeeper Bart Verbruggen probably should have done a bit better. He went the right way and it kind of swam under him.
But you always refer to him as goalkeeper Bart Verbruggen.
Well, if I just say Bart Verbruggen, some people might,
Yeah,
I don't know, might not know.
No, it's very
Um,
thoughtful of you. It's
I
just-
appreciate it, Liam.
in my head, every time you mention him, you say that full.
I don't think I've ever said Bart Verbruggen's full name out loud like that, but back to
goalkeeper Bart
gaslighting
Verbruggen.
for earlier in this episode.
Yeah. Well, there we go. I mean, that's it. That was one that was put on there a long time ago. The wheel hasn't worked today. But we'll bring the wheel back next week for more wheel. Before we go, though, we have to play Points Are Bad. Points Are Bad. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been here.
Me too.
There's been some things have changed. Other things, JJ, haven't changed, by which I mean you are still in last place. You have eclipsed a century, dear. You're now on 101 points. You're the only person over 100. But Sebastian Stafford-Bloor is on 97, so he's not very far ahead.
Okay.
He's about to hit that century too. Of the scores from last week, I mean, the games incidentally we picked were quite tricky ones in the end. Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, which of course we know was 5-0 to Bournemouth. Nobody predicted that.
I would have done in the spirit of the game.
Maybe
John,
you
what
would
did you
have.
predict?
2-1 to Bournemouth.
That's right. So John was
Back your
closest.
boys.
And then PSG versus Rennes also, which I think most people predicted.
He means rounds, but
He does mean rounds.
What do I mean?
Whoa.
Wait, which one is it? Oh, I'm thinking of Rennes. Rennes.
Ren.
And
You
then
don't
how do I
pronounce the S
say
in Ren.
Rem.
Rams.
Rounds.
Rennes?
But you do
But it's
pronounce this
almost
as
like
Rams,
it
not
almost
in
sounds
Ren.
like an N to me, like it's Stade de Reims,
Rams.
which is weird. I
Reims.
find it
Yeah,
as well.
because this is the one that's spelled
Like
R-E-I-M-S. Reims,
Yes.
I would read it.
Reims.
Reims.
You'd be wrong.
Anyway, everyone predicted a PSG victory. It was, as you mentioned already earlier in this episode, Liam, it was a 1-1 draw.
It was.
So I believe everyone, with the exception of John, that's you, me, Seb, we hit 8 points added. Not so good. John hit 6. So congratulations, John. You are the winner this week. That does mean loser. I'm going to let Liam pick the games.
We call me the
all
loser
equally- Unfortunately, you're the loser, Liam, even though you
Sure.
didn't predict
Is
anything
this much
last
like
week.
goalkeeper Bart Verbruggen?
Loser Liam Thar.
Loser Liam Thumb, would you be able to select 2 games for us, please?
I would. I think there's some interesting fixtures this weekend. The Milan derby della Madonnina, is this Sunday. Inter versus Milan. And also the Battle of the Olympics, Marseille and Lyon. There's another big game on the continent.
Are those the 2 you're picking?
Those are the two
It's
games.
just telling you this.
I thought you were just saying
listing
there's some
all the
interesting
fixtures.
games.
No, those are the games.
But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to pick Palace
Yeah,
West Ham.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Inter versus AC Milan and Marseille versus Lyon. How exciting. Very exciting, isn't it? Now, JJ, you're the official loser. So let's start with you for score lines, please. First up, Inter versus AC Milan.
Well, that's going to be a fascinating game. 3-4.
3-4. So 4 to Milan, 3 to Inter.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
4 goals coming in injury time for Milan.
You got that, Steve? Great stuff. If you just put one J, you might become confused about which J that is. Yeah, well done. Again, he was let go from 2 different football podcasts, so it's not hard to see why, is it? Liam, you're next. You'll be predicting.
Oh, I actually have to guess as well.
You'll be picking on behalf of Seb Stafford-Bloor. He
Okay.
does live in Germany, so you won't see him very regularly. Don't worry
I
too
don't
much
see
about
him,
screwing
yeah.
it up. But what do you think there for Inter Milan?
3-1 to Inter, please.
Yeah, okay, that seems
Don't know
about
why I
right.
said please.
3 goals for the home team, though. So
I'm next up to guess on this one.
I've got to go 1-1.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to say. The thing is, I do actually think it could be 1-1. I do.
It's a common scoreline though, right? Like you're.
Yeah.
It is. It's a very
statistically the
common.
best
If
scoreline
you
to
ever,
choose.
if you ever hear Joe
I'm gonna
talk
say
about football,
1-1.
you think no game ever ended on anything other.
Shush up now. How
Shush
dare
up.
you? Shush up. Now, John, it's your turn. So, what do you think? Inter versus.
Oh, you're going
Milan?
1-1.
I'm going 1-1. Yeah, of course.
I'm going to go 4-0 to Inter.
Good lord.
Why not?
Okay. Well, no, I can think of some reasons why not, but I won't. There's just too numerous to list. Now, the other game. What did we say it was? Oh, Marseille versus Lyon. JJ, let's begin with you. Marseille versus Lyon.
well, I know a lot about these 2 teams,
Yeah.
which is why I think that will be 3-4.
3-4. He's going to add so many points. He's poisoned the well, this guy.
I
To be fair,
didn't get
Lyon
to do
have
spirit
had
of
a
the
couple
game.
of 3-4s, I think, or some high-scoring games in recent
And that's
seasons.
exactly why I said
Yeah,
it.
for real. Oh my god, very exciting. Okay, well, Liam, what do you think then?
Gaslighting again.
I need to check quickly who's at home.
There'll be no checking, Liam.
Marseille are at home. So
Yes.
it's at the Velodrome. So I'm going to go 2-2 because they've had some poor home for Marseille this season. Because there was a period earlier on where Roberto De Zerbi basically offered to resign because they were dropping points at home.
Wow.
But then he fixed things, and then they
Kind of. They've just been very good
unfixed it.
away.
they were
but
back, and then they weren't
they
back.
weren't back.
anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is very confusing for me, and it sounds like it could go a number of different ways, so I'm going to say 1-1.
Yeah, nice.
Just to be safe.
I'll go 2-1 to Marseille.
Marseille, 2-1 to Marseille for John. Okay. Well, that's us then, isn't it? All that's left for me to do is to say thank you to loser Liam Thorne.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know, annoying man John McKenzie.
Goalkeeper Bart Verbruggen.
Yes. And travelling Wilbury JJ Bull.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's a good. I like that one.
As well as twice Steve Hank. Twice Steve Hank.
Thank you.
See you next week.